Hello,
Hey, how are you?
I am pretty fine, thank you.
Good to see you. Can you tell us how were you able to, how did you come with the idea to crowdsource and what you've done? Tell us from the start of the story.
Yeah, from the beginning.
Okay, go on. I'll switch off my mic.
All right. Well, first of all, hello everyone. I am Joonas Mäkinen. I'm a freelance mathematics teacher and student. Although I teach quite a lot of things. And for starters, here in Finland, the upper secondary schools or high schools or whatever you want to call them, uh, it's all course based, and every course has their own school book, and everyone has to buy them themselves. And the total amount of money that goes for those books can get pretty high. And there are actually a lot of people who cannot afford all that. Well, not so easily. So we gathered up teachers, students, hobbyists, and we decided, hey, we're going to write, well, starting with mathematics, course to textbooks for free with Creative Commons by the attribution for everyone to use. For starters, then we're going to move on to some other things. It actually started with a colleague of mine, Vesalin Aho. I can link you to his stuff. He's a teacher of automotive electronics, and he actually did publish this book in the normal way, as in he has a publisher and blah blah blah. It took a lot of time, and he got this idea that for one person it takes a lot of time to write a book, but actually if you can share the workload for many people, it's not going to take that much time. So he contacted me, he contacted some other people, and the idea started spreading. And 1.5 years ago, we sat down for a weekend from Friday morning to Sunday evening, including the nights, and we wrote a textbook in a weekend for the first course of for the first course in mathematics in the Finnish schools, the advanced level, and that was a huge success. Of course, there were several interesting things about it. First of all, of course, was that it was a book sprint. Because so far, most book sprints or hackathons we've heard about are about software or tutorials or manuals, but not textbooks. So this was one of a kind, at least in Finland. And the second part was, of course, that it was Creative Commons licensed, and it was up for everyone to use, develop, share, use as they wish, even sell if they wanted to. And of course, these two little bit different goals got a bit mixed up in the media, but overall, everyone it was a success, and everyone was very proud of the result, and people got very interested. And we kept going, we kept going. So we met again in a month, and we started writing the second book, and of course, upgrading the first one. We did write a lot, and it was good, but I would be lying if I said it was finished product, sadly. So it does take a little bit longer than 1 weekend to write something that also looks good and just doesn't have the uh, mandatory essentials. We chose mathematics because that, well, most of us who had been teaching mathematics was a very simple topic. It's very different from, let's say, history or social studies or psychology, where you can or you need to do a lot of choosing what you're going to tell in what order. And mathematics is it's a very cumulative subject, and the basic things that everyone has to learn haven't changed. So it was pretty easy to write because everyone knows what should be in there and pretty much in what order as well. But as I said, in the future we're going to do some other subjects as well. So far, in 1.5 years, what has happened is that we've had these weekends once in a while. We've had maybe around 30 people over a weekend doing stuff, and we've written 4 books in total that are in very good shape. We're writing some more. 4 of those also have been used in practice in several schools. Feedback has been great, and more and more and more requests keep coming in. The people want to use our books, not just because they're free, but because they also think that they're good, because they're easy to update. With the, let's say, conventional big publishers, the situation has been that you need to wait several years for a new print if there is something you want to update. If there's some problem or a mistake or something that's out of date, things just don't get updated very quickly. So at the moment, it's going extremely well. We have loads of active people who want to write these books. In general, people are very interested in using them. The quality is great. There are some issues still with the, let's say, the methods and what sort of platform should be used. That's a good topic to take into account. If you're going to make a book sprint, you need to get a technology side done and planned early on, because you can't use half of your weekend on the, let's say, on checking what sort of tools you're using, and if some people have problems with some of the programs, that's just not good. But we've been able to polish this for 1.5 years now, and it's been great. We got this grant for 10,000 euros for last year, and well, we still haven't used it. So now that we do have some money, we have actually been able to pay some people, like not for their work, but sort of like come over for a weekend and help us out, and we'll pay you some, just for compensation. And I have to say, everyone that has arrived and helped with the books, proofreading, doing exercises, whatever, have been there just because it's great and not for the money. That I have to point out. So that's how it's going at the moment. And for background, I also have to mention that here in Finland, let's say the open knowledge or open data, open education, the culture is not that far yet. We have Open Knowledge Finland here. I was there founding it. We have loads of activists who are working a lot with open data and open education, but they're very single people, and there are not many instances which do this in a grand scale. So it's a new thing still. Even if we did something completely new, something astonishing, like writing a textbook over a weekend, no one really knew how to react to that. Even there were some journalists who contacted big publishers and wanted some comments, but they were just like, oh well, let's see how it's going to go. And
Hello?
yeah,
Can you hear us?
yeah,
Okay, we didn't hear what you've said. Probably you have to repeat the last 2 sentences.
yeah, I noticed there was some muting. So
Yes.
okay, so what I said was that although we did do some great stuff and some astonishing ideas that the media was also interested in, it's still very new. It's not a huge thing in Finland yet, unlike in some other places. There's not a lot of money going around, and even if some journalists who liked our project asked some big publishers about what they think about it, they were just like, oh, well, let's see how it's going, or, but how will they make their living? Which was the ever old question that we simply laughed at because there are just, few enthusiasts working over a weekend. It's not like we're going to starve. But this is going to, it's going to advance, it's going to progress a lot further. But yeah, if you have some questions, that would be a lot easier to answer now.
Yeah, guys. Does anybody have questions?
And in case someone missed the link, I'm gonna post it in the chat.
Should
Creative Commons.
Give a high level, very, very high level overview of technologies that it's using, just name dropping.
Okay.
Yeah, you better repeat the question if someone has, because I could barely hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, can you give us a very high level of overview of technology which you were using?
Yeah, I can. First, I have to talk a little bit about sort of like what sort of things we had to take into consideration, because it depends a lot on the subject that you're going to write about. If it's just writing some text, a novel or a tutorial, you can do that with anything. Of course, when you have loads of people working at the same time, well, you can use some pads, or you can use, let's say, Google Drive or something like this. That will work. But when you need to have tables, pictures, formulas, then you really need to find out what is the de facto standard for that area. For mathematics and for physics and so on, it has been LaTeX. And I don't know if people know, if some of you might know. It's a typesetting tool. You may Google it. I would say it's the most standard tool for mathematicians, physicists, and so on, who want to write neat, clean mathematical text, so that it all looks pretty. If you just take a template, it will look like a nice article. You don't have to worry about how it looks like. You just concentrate on the structure, and it turns out to look very good. This is what we chose in the beginning because, well, first of all, most of us mathematicians know it already on some level. And second was that we didn't have any, let's say, or professional or otherwise excellent people working with graphics, or people who could do the typesetting for us. So we needed a tool that we can just put all the stuff in and it should come out neat enough. Of course, now we have some people who are willing to, let's say, okay, you write the text and I'm going to make it pretty. That's nice. But so far, we're still using LaTeX because for mathematical texts, that's what gives the best results at the moment. And we've had some people who know how to code enough and do some tweaks and scripts so that the actual outcome looks extremely nice. It looks like a professional textbook, and that's something that will take time for it to look good. So the final outlook polishing does take some time, but we use LaTeX for the actual typesetting and writing. And another tool we're using was GitHub, because we had loads of people working on several parts of the same project at the same time, so we needed some sort of version control, so that we didn't store our files locally. We stored them on GitHub. We stored them on GitHub. It did take some time for some people to learn how to use version control systems, but for us who were in the beginning quite technical, of course this will differ if you're some other kind of people working on some other stuff. So we were familiar with this. So what we could do is that some person updates one file and sends the final results to the cloud, and other people can just pull the latest version for themselves, and there were no conflicts because there was good version control. So we used those two tools, and you can get PDFs immediately out from the later editors. So that's what we did. But if you're just writing text, or you have some other person who is simply willing to make it look good afterwards, then you can just write it on Google Drive or something. You might want to unmute the...
I'm asking how many people saying that they pay too much for books for their children. Yeah. Tell us, like, in Finland, do you have to pay for books, for your school books, textbooks?
Yeah. In Finland, if we're talking about primary education, the first 9 years, or it's going to be 10 years, but still, the mandatory education, the government pays for the books. But after that, the books we're working on were for upper secondary, so it's after your mandatory schooling, and those everyone has to pay for themselves. And for some people, it's I wouldn't find it too far-fetched to say that some people are going to study less and take less courses because it would be too costly to get all the books. That's sadly the fact here. And as a personal experience, what I found out, I studied law when I was in upper secondary, and I used thousands of euros in books. That's a lot. Thankfully, my parents helped me with that. But I'd say when we started working with our own books, when we started writing, and we started, of course, checking that, okay, when someone wants to use our book, of course, they can use it digitally, but some want them printed, of course. And I have to say, the biggest thing I learned that also came as a bit of a shock to me was that if we take our book, let's say it can have color covers, and we order a print of 2,000 items, it's going to cost us maybe less than €2 per book. Seriously, less than €2 per book for the prints. But when you go to any store and you look at the school textbooks there, they're going to cost more than 30. So that was a big shock to me, and I realized, okay, there's something definitely wrong with these prices.
We have another question.
It's not exactly a question, for answering your question. I did a quick check on Poland's website. The Leaving Cert Maths books are, there's 2 books, that's 20.75 each. So
how much?
€20.
So it's 22 euros here.
Could you repeat the question if there was?
42. Okay, the math textbook costs here 42 euro. That's what we hear.
42.
Yeah.
Is that the whole? Well, is it a thick book for the whole school, or is it? Do you have a course system?
There is just the Leaving Cert higher level books. There's still past papers and other things that you can prepare.
No, it's just a book. You have to buy other stuff, and it's for the final year of the school. So,
yeah,
okay.
If it contains everything you're going to use for several years, then the price is actually cheap. But it's the tradition here in Finland that because the upper secondary schooling is based on courses. You choose course 1, 2, course 3, course 4, as you wish.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And since not everyone is going through the same courses,
We can
it has
find
to be
this
sort of, it's
individual.
sort of like that, and every course is its own book.
Yes. Oh, there's old people. Gross.
Ivan, we cannot. Hold on. Yeah. Removed from this video. Sorry, guys. That's the first time actually so many people who are interested. There is probably it's because of the great interest around the world in open education. What else can we say? Sorry. Any more questions, guys? Or Joonas?
It,
Is this a scope outside of perhaps secondary school? So could you see it going into third level or into other kind of areas, industry, that kind of, in terms of open source for those kind of applications?
Yeah, the question is, do you think that the practice of crowdsourcing educational material can move one level up to third level education?
are you referring to colleges and universities?
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Partly that is happening already. I know of some examples, not much, but yeah. There are a lot of people in universities, at least in Finland, who are actually activists in the same area for open education. I think the culture just hasn't really reached that yet. So it's still like one teacher doing own materials for one course, blah, 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 over the years. People just haven't sort of like woken up to it yet that, well, yeah, we could do it once as open materials and then just sort of like collectively try to keep it up to date.
It's not necessarily a certification of good quality, it's just pedagogy and content.
Okay.
How do you oversee it?
The question is about quality control.
Yep.
There is one thing is, to produce material, but like how can you ensure that it's up to the standard?
Yeah. First of all, what are the standards? That's different in different places around the world, because here in Finland, and of course in many other places too, it's up to the teacher to choose the materials and basically even the contents of the course. The syllabus is just a few lines what should be in there. So there's very much freedom for the teacher to choose. Quality-wise, when you're writing this stuff, well, we simply haven't run into any problems, because the people who we have writing these books, they know what they're doing. We have teachers who've been doing this stuff for long. We have students who know what their problems are and they can give very good feedback, and we simply haven't seen any problems, so it's working extremely well. That's all I can say for that. And there are lots of people who, let's say, are very good at other things also than just the mathematics part or the teaching part. They know what is, let's say, urgent to teach people society-wise at the moment. The same people are maybe grammar Nazis. They can do they can make sure the text is correct, all the typography is correct. It's the quality, at least with our team, has been great. We have lots of people who love this stuff, and there simply haven't been any problems. So, of course, it might be that if you have some team, the people in which aren't that experienced with teaching or aren't that experienced with the requirements of some course or the syllabus, then there might be a lot of polishing and rewriting to do. But in our situation, we simply have not had that problem. It just works.
That's the key right there is a team of dedicated individuals are going to produce a higher quality document than a team of paid professionals who are just doing it to earn paychecks. Textbook companies are just hiring. I mean, they hire credible people who are probably well versed in these things. But they may be writing a math textbook this semester, this part of the year, and then later in the year they might be writing a history textbook. A great love or passion of the subject they're writing. I think the model here is Wikipedia. Wikipedia has shown time and time again that it is a more credible and resource than any other encyclopedia that's ever been produced. It's rough around the edges, but by and large, it has fewer mistakes than any other resource on the internet.
Yeah, I'm going to need some recapping. I can hear some of that.
There was a comment that that passion is a greater motivator than
yes,
money.
Definitely.
And the example was given about Wikipedia, for example.
Yeah. And of course, I probably don't have to remind you that although there are people who keep bringing out all the time, or keep bringing up all the time, that anyone can edit Wikipedia and therefore it's not trustworthy, it's still trustworthy. Because there's loads of people who take it very passionate to keep it up to date and error-free, and it has been shown many times that it is very accurate. It's not less accurate than Encyclopedia Britannica. And for the same reason, just because we have some amateurs or also professionals working on this, we simply love this stuff and we want to make sure it's great. So it works.
Yeah. Cool, go on. One more question.
Go ahead.
1 second.
Let me mute it before I do.
1 second.
Great. No, it wasn't even that momentous a question and so forth. But I was just curious whether you'd had any experience with Inkling, the commercial provider that's doing kind of reconceptualizing the idea behind the book. Do you know them at all?
I've heard about it once, and even, well, before you managed to finish your sentence, I had already Googled it.
Very quick.
And no, we haven't done anything with it. So I'm not familiar with it. I've heard about it, but no.
Okay, no, I mean, I only brought it up because it's kind of the other end of the equation to some extent, because they're trying to reimagine the nature of the article itself. And although it is commercial, they have an infrastructure that's allowing for a more participatory development of the digital volume from this standpoint. And then when it comes to actually bringing it out into the wider population, you can choose to get smaller chunks of it as well. So from the same standpoint of taking music and making it available through the App Store and so forth, and this changing the way that music's distributed, you could say, well, I'm only interested in chapter 3, and buy chapter 3 and get a discount for buying more chapters and so forth. That's one end of it, is really this idea about, it's a different sort of object. The other end is this idea of having an infrastructure where they bring people together and have people's contributions weighted and so forth by the wider community itself, and assemble things very collectively. And so I was just wondering, in terms of the mechanism that you get into, if you're thinking about the nature of the actual book differently, I'm wondering how that changes the nature of what you might produce as textbooks and as instructional material.
We have loads of people who are very interested in totally revamping the ideas of how things should be taught. At the moment, we are concentrating on textbooks, so there are going to be books. Of course, it's already for the better that they are available digitally, totally, unlike from the big publishers. But it's still a textbook. We have added some, I could say, interactivity by actually putting up links or QR codes for video tutorials in the book. So that's a little bit, yeah. So that's a slight improvement. But at the moment, we haven't used or even considered any other format than simply the book. So that will come at some point. And I'm actually not sure if that's even up to us, because right after we did the first book, after the first book sprint, there were already several people who, with their own spare time, out of their own interest, actually took our material, which is of course freely available, and made it into an interactive website with all the exercises. So we didn't have to do it; someone else did it.
Fantastic, brilliant. One more question. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
how does it compare with what they do
in
how does it compare with Wikibooks?
with Wikibooks, how is it comparable with Wikibooks?
Yeah. No, we haven't actually done any comparison about Wikibooks or anything like that yet. So it's hard to say anything. Of course, since our materials are even more freely licensed than Wikipedia, because it's just attribution. Of course, anyone can actually just copy our stuff and put them up. That's not a problem.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you very much. Thank
Yep.
you for your time and for sharing your experience with us.
All right, and of course you can contact me anytime you want. So
Thanks. Bye.
we'll be in link there. All right, cheers.
Cheers. You're more than welcome to stay with us.
Yeah,
We'll just
I'll be
switch
following.
off your microphone.
See
We
you,
have
Bob.
Mauriki